Welcome to the Kortex Media Podcast, Marketing Accelerator, your compass for navigating the dynamic world of marketing and business growth. I'm Korson Schmidt, founder of Kortex Media. Our mission is to equip marketing agencies with the custom growth solutions they need to unlock massive revenue increases and scale their business. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we're joined by a true pioneer in marketing measurement, Chris Clegg, founder of PortMA. Chris brings 30 years of experience while he's designed and managed over 1,000 commercial research studies, but his true expertise lies in solving one marketing's toughest challenge, measuring the ROI of experiential and live events. After co-founding one research firm, Chris launched PortMA in 2010. His firm now helps agencies prove value of everything from NASCAR sponsorships to grocery store sampling. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Korson. It's great to be here.
No worries. I'm excited to get into this one, Chris, because you guys do something very unique and very special within the marketing and agency world now. I mean, at the beginning of your journey, you identified that critical gap between marketing and analytics. So, I mean, now you've started PortMA. You guys have been in business now for 15 years. And I'm assuming you guys have evolved over the years as well. Today, what are your guys' core services? What are your core offerings? And what do you guys bring to the market today? Who are you guys?
That's great. It's a good question, too. Thanks for asking it. So we have found that there are a lot of great marketers out there that are working for agencies that are kind of in the small to medium size as an agency. They're usually a few years old and up and coming. And they're big enough to have these multi-million-dollar brands that are asking for their services. And they're doing amazing work for those brands. But the agency themselves is not big enough to have an in-house analytics team. And so what we've been able to do is come in and support those groups with good, traditional, solid marketing analytics. And we found that our niche has been applying that in two key areas. One is focused on the advertising firms, the folks that are shooting video, buying digital, buying media, and generating sales directly for brands through traditional channels. And for them, we've focused on helping them understand who are the people that these brands are trying to sell to, how do they engage this category, what drives their values and beliefs when engaging the category, and then how do those values and beliefs align with the brand that's being asked to be promoted? And that gap is oftentimes easily seen as the problem that marketing is there to solve. And so therefore, bridging that gap helps those teams develop the appropriate strategy to do so. The other side, which is a side I think we'll talk more about today, is on the experiential marketing side. So if you took radio, print, television, digital, freestanding inserts in newspapers, you took that off the table, what you're left are live activations. So they are the sponsorships behind the music festivals. They are everything from grandma handing out cheese in the grocery store to there being a sponsored NASCAR team. And those activations are these enormous marketing spends. And the scrappy, amazingly creative agencies that are creating and supporting the sales assets that come with those sponsorships, they have traditionally not had a means of measuring the reach, impact, or value of that work. And as the brands doing that work over the years have gotten more serious about the role this kind of marketing plays in their marketing mix, it became and has become more and more important for those brands to understand and be able to articulate their place in that marketing mix. And so the agencies are being asked to do that for the brands. And when the agency doesn't have that in-house skill set, they turn to PortMA to help them figure that out and deliver it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Chris, it's a very important aspect having these analytics to show that your work is really driving results or driving a outcome at the end of the day. Do you mind taking us through a quick case study on how you guys have specifically helped a client or an agency find those results they've gotten through these experiential marketing campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this adage in marketing that I don't remember who said it, but someone said, I know half my marketing is working, I just don't know which half. And that's that has for a long time was the explanation on why experiential agencies didn't have hard analytics showing the impact of their programs. And that doesn't have to be the case anymore. And in many cases, it's not for the agencies that are really leading the pack. So there's three things that we have to cover when we think about how we're going to measure experiential. And they are the same three things that really any marketer is dealing with any kind of marketing campaign. And the first has to do with reach. If we were talking about television, we talk about gross rating points, or if we were talking about billboards, we talk about drive-bys. But in experiential, reach is about the volume of consumers that are engaged, certainly. And oftentimes that's sampling, or it could be a demonstration, or it could be just participating in a footprint experience. But it's also the quality of that reach, because in marketing, we're not going with a general population every time we're trying to advertise something. We're thinking about targeted consumers. We're thinking about those people that we're either looking to expand the brand into, or folks that we're looking to educate on new usage occasions. But there are individuals and individual profiles that we want to target. And when you think about something like digital, it's easy. Like the most common form of digital, you have these things like social. And on social platforms, we can choose all kinds of ways to target people. We can target based on demographics. We can target based on the channels they subscribe to, or the things they follow. And that's everything to how you design a marketing campaign. And so experiential, at this most basic level, these sponsorships have to be able to have the same kind of reporting that the brand managers are used to on all their other channels. And it starts with reach. And we frame that in a question, and that question is simply, how often am I reaching the right kind of consumer, right? And that has the how often component is a volume metric, and we can look at how efficiently we're reaching people. But really, that has to be also in the context of a quality measure. So how often am I reaching the right kind of person? And so we need to be able to answer the same questions, the same profiling questions that managers used to any other channel when it comes to the reach quality. And in experiential, we have at our disposal not keywords on SEO, or not certain we're following certain people on social, but we have the venues that are being selected for the activations. And even further, those venues, based on what's happening at that venue, there could be a very different consumer demographic. You take a concert venue is going to have a very different audience when you're thinking about a K-pop tribute band versus a Van Halen tribute band. Very different groups of people, ages and interests and everything in between. So we need to be able to look at the activations, look at where they're activating, what's going on, and how are they attracting certain kinds of demographic profiles, so that can be repeated in other places. So they can do more of those that are attracting a higher percentage of those kinds of people, and less of those that are not, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the first point. We have to establish reach and get the same measures around it. The second is we need to be able to understand our impact, because marketing is about moving people through a purchase cycle. And at its most basic level, there are these four stages. There's people that have the need to begin with, right? So we have to educate people on the problem that the brand solves. And sometimes that's obvious. I'm thirsty, so I'm interested in drinking a Coke. Other times it's not. So you have an example of a pharmaceutical that was promoting a drug that solved the problem of restless leg syndrome, RLS. And restless leg syndrome was this idea that when you're in bed and sleeping, you're interrupting your sleep or interrupting the sleep of your partner by your legs just flailing as you sleep, right? And this was a problem for obviously a segment of people. This pharmaceutical had derived a solution. But the first thing they had to do was educate people about the problem itself, so they could identify with that. And if you don't have the problem the brand solves, you're never going to even put it in your consideration set, right? And then that second stage is awareness. You have to be aware that there is a potential solution to this problem that you now identify with. And then that third stage is trial. You have to get over your apprehensions, whether it's money or accessibility or convenience. You have to get over those problems to give this brand a shot. And if the promise made by marketing aligns with your experience, then you will become a customer more than that just initial trial purchase. And you will continuously, and depending on how long that marketing promise aligns with your experience, you may become a very loyal customer, right? So they have that need, awareness, trial, and purchase cycle. And the reason why any product or service is not being purchased by 100% of a population, of any population, is because there are a large group of consumers stuck somewhere in that cycle. And the job of any marketing is to simply unstick them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to do that, you have to, and that process of unsticking them is the way in which we define and think about impact in marketing, right? And really the best way that we've found to phrase that impact question so it's universally applicable is this idea of, am I creating intent where it didn't previously exist? And so am I generating an intent to learn more about, to consider, and or to purchase a brand, product or service where that wasn't there beforehand? And so when we are dealing with intent, we're speaking to the people on the stakeholder side that really care about sales. Whereas when you're talking about reach, you're more focused on those stakeholders that are about media and impressions. So you're serving really the two kinds of customers that most agencies have in marketing. But you need to do two things to understand intent. You need to understand where they are in that purchase cycle, and you need to understand how is your marketing moving them forward. And we know that early stage purchase cycle consumers, those that are in the need or awareness stage, we're focused on attitudinal changes. We're focused on them understanding the magnitude of not solving the problem that this brand solves. We're helping them make a lifestyle connection to the brand. And so things like tagging your brand onto the fandom of a base by being a sponsor of a sports team, or you focused on educational opportunities that help educate around the problem. Those are things that are going to move customers forward. And so we look at measuring changes in attitude or consideration for those customers that are in the early stages. And the latter stages, trial and continued purchase, are about behavioral change, right? So you're helping people make that leap to give it a shot, whether it's an expense of their time or their dollars or their freedom to do something else, and you're making it very easy for them to trial and test this out, and you're doing that through couponing, through free samples. You're doing it through if you have current customers and your product is something that can benefit from increased usage. You're focused on talking about usage occasions, because we know that brands only make money in three ways, right? They will introduce people to the category. They will get current category users to increase their consumption, or they're going to steal from the competition, right? So there's only three ways you get customers, and for those current customers, usage becomes a really important piece of it. So that's why you'll see alcohol brands will promote new cocktail ideas or new cocktail occasions, those kinds of things to help increase usage. So we look at intent from a latter stage purchase cycle perspective as a behavioral change. And when we know where that consumer is, and we know in that purchase cycle, and we know their changes in attitude and behavior, we can get a good measure of intent, right? And then the third thing we have to address in this space is something that every other marketing channel has figured out really well, and that is this idea of ROI, or return on investment, right? And so the question, and many times, in especially experiential, you see this foggy kind of blurred interpretation of ROI to be something like return on objective, or something that's not linked to a dollar amount. And that's fine, but that's not the business we're in. We need to help these agencies and these brands compare dollar for dollar. What did they spend on this sponsorship versus what they could have done if they put all that money into radio, for example. So, and ROI is this measure of, what did you gain and what did you spend? You divide those two, and that gives you this percentage. 100% is typically a break even, but that percentage serves as an index measure that you can then use in a standardized way to compare to all those other channels, all those online, offline, print, everything you can imagine type channels. So it's a great measure to understand that place in the marketing mix. And it comes from an experiential, the way those first two questions come together, the way that the number of people I got to, how well it was the right kind of person. Because it was the right kind of person, more often than not, my message resonated with them. I therefore created intent where it didn't previously exist. And to do all that, I had to spend a certain amount of money. And so is the outcome of that generating customers at a value greater than what I spent to do it. And that ROI, why that is the pinnacle of what most agencies are looking for and most brands, but when you get to it, when you find out that that ROI is 284%, other than being relieved that it's positive, there's nothing you can do with it. But if you segment it, if you start to look at and say, when I'm at a festival, my ROI is 120%, but when I'm at retail, my ROI is 240%, that's very actionable, right? You can do something with that. Just like you can do with any other marketing channel you're split testing, same kind of idea. And you can not only know that difference and understand that retail is doing more than twice the impact that you're getting from your sponsorship, maybe a sports sponsorship, but more importantly, you can deconstruct that ROI by looking at, was it the number of people I got to? I didn't get to enough people. Was it the kind of people they were? Was it the impact I had on them? Or was it what I spent to do it? Where in that was I bleeding that caused this to be better than that? And because all four of those things that are things that you have control over as the experiential marketer, then you can deconstruct why you got an ROI and why you didn't, and exactly what you can do to get it to be stronger next time. And that gives that a continuous A/B split testing or continuous improvement process that any marketing channel is dependent on doing. And that if you're talking about like TV has Nielsen and Facebook has Facebook Analytics and Google has G4 that's done amazing stuff to help us understand return on investment. And for a long time, Experiential didn't have that, and now we do. And so those three things: reach, impact, and value. How often am I reaching the right consumer? Am I creating intent where it didn't previously exist? And under what circumstances is that ROI strongest? That's what we focused on measuring.
Amazing.
So we've done that hundreds and if not thousands of times over the last 15, 16 years. And we've done it across all kinds of agencies. So there's like an endless string of case studies we could offer. One that sticks in my head, there's actually two that stick in my head. One is it was for estate tourism. And I like these two examples because they're so different. And it kind of speaks to the power of Experiential as a tool. One was the promotion of a state as a tourist destination for folks in the United States. And this was a state that had a reputation that it was not a great place to go. It didn't have anything to offer. It was, other than some important history, it was brown and dusty and not a fun place to be. When in reality, it was some of the most diverse geography that you'd find in any state in the country. And they had incredible tropical experiences. They had amazing deserts. They had great hunting grounds. They had incredible beaches. I mean, just there's so much you could do. And the agency was hired by this state tourism body to promote the state as a tourist destination. And they did that through a number of very large sponsorships at fairs and festivals across the country. And these are the kind of places like the Atlanta Dogwood Festival or the Albuquerque Balloon Festival or Coachella, or these really huge events, sometimes that would last 7 to 10 days. And they would roll up there with multiple 18-wheelers, and they would build out this huge 200 by 300 foot footprint that was creating all these immersive stations and experiences. I mean, down to like these huge domes that people would go into in large groups to see a surround sound, surround screen kind of visual experience and immerse them in what it's like to be in this place. And we were able to measure those occasions where they were on site. They were at the right kind of places. They were reaching the right kind of people that were likely tourists of this place. And we were able to look at them, measure their on-site experience, and then look to see 3 months later and 6 months later, did they take those steps to further investigate this as a vacation destination? And then 6 months later, did they actually take a trip? And we found out that they were indeed taking the trips. And those they were taking them at a small percentage, as you would expect, 8 to 11% on average. But we knew from the tourism board that there were several $1,000s spent per trip, and we multiply that back through as a value on the number of people that we were generating as new tourists for this destination, and the ROI was obvious. The ROI was very evident. There's another scenario where it was for a men's razor, and this men's razor company was sponsoring a series of e-games where it was focused on racing, car racing. And actually there was different types of games depending on where they were, but they're at like a dozen different places, and they'd put off these big events for people to come in all over. And the events were like 300 grand a piece to pull off these massive like 1-day gaming tournaments. And the sponsor was spending upwards of 300 grand to kind of be not only a title sponsor, but to fully support it and staff it and make it an experience that they were bringing to these kids. And they found that in LA, when they had this particular racing game, that we were able to find in partnership with them, that it just wasn't having any impact. It just was, when they were in Atlanta, they were down south in Florida, when they were in Boston, it was very predictable, solid return on investment. In LA, it disappears, totally disappears. And we couldn't figure out why. And we did some basic analysis, doing these ideas of reach, impact, and value. That the value drop is what got it on our radar. We then deconstruct about why we got to that. And it turns out that the majority of those that participated in this racing game in LA were Asian men between the ages of 14 and 23. And the reality is that Asian men are not shaving their faces at the same rate that the other folks are on the East Coast. Wow. And it wasn't the right mix. It wasn't the right combination. The message to market match was a miss. And it gave them the opportunity to evaluate what they were doing there and how they were doing it. And they started to create a more diverse base of the kind of games that they were promoting in those markets. And it was able to bring those numbers back up while not alienating one audience. They were able to invite another audience that was more conducive to the brand, what the brand was selling. And it created a great win and allowed them to continue this e-tour, this e-gaming tour for years to come. So there are so many different scenarios, whether it's how is the Air Force recruiting and what's working and what's not working? How do we think about razors? How do we promote a frozen pizza at a wine festival? All these things, they always boil down to those same three concepts, because that's really what all of marketing is trying to figure out, is reach, impact, value. And we've taken those traditional techniques and just applied it to the experiential space with great success. Yeah.
Well, I think I can end the podcast now. I think we just got a huge dump of knowledge and experience and everything. It was, no, I'm just kidding. But no, that was amazing, Chris, taking us through kind of marketing in general as a whole for anyone that maybe doesn't know a ton or maybe just wants a refresh of it. I really appreciate that. And then the stories are truly amazing. And when you said the LA wasn't performing as well, I was going to mention, I was like, maybe it's just because they're from LA and they don't grow facial quite as much. But no, that's a great, it's funny you bring that up, because you never really would have thought about that. True. Looking at who's coming to these events and who's attending. So, and I mean, you bring up a great point, ROI. And I mean, the ROI is super important today, because trust is such a big barrier within the marketing world today. Clients don't really like to trust agencies today because they've gotten screwed over from another agency, or maybe their campaign didn't work out the way they wanted it to. Yeah. So trust is so important, and to show that ROI and that return on your investment for working with a company is super important, especially something experiential like what you guys are getting the analytics from. And a lot of companies don't know how to navigate that space. So to know that they have PortMA or Chris to come to and actually get foundational analytics to come back to their clients with is super important. Now, I mean, you've been in the industry for 30 years, Chris, and I just mentioned one trend, and that was trust within the marketing world, within the marketing agency world. What are some of the other trends that you're seeing throughout the industry that are affecting you guys as an agency, but also marketing agencies as a whole throughout this marketing industry? Yeah.
You know, marketing and even agencies as an area supporting the industry have there's been a segment of the folks working in that area historically that have leaned on the glitz and the wow factor to win and continue business. And that also there are times when, you know, that music tour got sponsored in the third, fourth, and fifth year because the executive vice president of the brand sponsoring it had a daughter that were big fans of that band, and a part of this multi-digit activation, multi-digit sponsorship included 7 backstage passes. And so there are these silly reasons why large amounts of money were spent over and over again. And that's fine, I guess, because it kind of what's make the whole world move, and there are other benefits to the brand by doing so, and so it didn't really matter. But digital came around a couple decades ago, and it's grown and matured, and it showed us that there are opportunities to understand down to the individual whether or not you are adding to that person's life, or are you just being annoying junk mail equivalent or spam. And it goes to that adage of when we used to get catalogs in the mail, you might get like a 200-page color glossy furniture catalog, right, in your mailbox, and it fills your mailbox, and all the other mail is falling out, and you get it, and it's this hunk of environmental waste. You know what I mean? That it irritates you to no end that they're wasting their time sending it to you, and you put it in the recycling bin or you put it in the trash, depending on how flexible your recycling is, and it's disgusting, and it's a huge waste of money, unless you're in the market for a couch, right? If you're shopping for a couch, that was the most valuable, amazing piece of mail that you got that week, and you were so thankful for it, and you spent a lot of time looking at it carefully. And so the relevance of marketing is going to relate to how it adds to our lives. And digital start to teach us that as marketers, we have to be responsible to adding value to people's lives and not just shoving our thing in their face, hoping that they're going to buy it because of our relentless pressure. And so that as that becomes more and more real, and the way in which business is done, Experiential has been forced to match that momentum, because brand managers just aren't tolerating shoving a logo on a player's hat and expecting people to ignore it anymore. So the trend is been all about making sure that relevancy is there, and that you're able to transparently demonstrate why it's working, and there's no more hiding behind the glitz or the wow factor. It's about showing, this is my plan, this is why I'm doing that, and this is the accountability metrics to show that I did it in a way that aligned with your brand message and your value proposition. And it's not just that transparency and maintaining trust, like you mentioned. If you're an agency manager or an agency director and you want to win more sales, you go to the client and you say, hey, for this amount of money, I'm going to deliver this much return. You know what I mean? You project that ROI before you even start. And if you have your data organized, or if you've done it a million times for other brands in the same category, and you've organized the way that's performed for you, it's very easy for you to go to a new client in that same category and say, this is what you can expect. And that's why analytics work, because like the best predictor of the future is the past. If we were in an office together, and every day for the last 5 years you walked into the office at 8:10 a.m. and your manager dropped by my desk and said, when is Korson going to be in the office? If I said 8:10 a.m., I probably would be right more often than not, right? Because we have these common threads that bind us in ways that aren't obvious or apparent, and good measurement helps us assess and quantify, and therefore operationalize and activate these trends, these patterns, these common threads. And when we apply that to something like marketing ROI, it gives you this incredible power to predict the future. And when you can predict the future with accuracy, you're brilliant, and you win that business more often. And even just the act of going to a brand as an agency and making a commitment with a KPI that you're going to then measure, report progress on, and then be accountable to when they're done. 10 years ago, that was unique. It's a lot less so now, because that brand manager is expecting that and getting it from all their other vendors. And so the agencies have to do the same thing. The experiential agencies have to follow suit. So that's a big part of how things have been moving and where things have been going around using data to not only legitimately design a strategy, but to predict the outcome of that strategy, and then to know in near real time how well it's working, making adjustments, and then accurately showing and understanding the value post event, post experience. That's starting to become table stakes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We're definitely seeing that shift in the industry. And you brought up a great point, and that's that, I mean, a lot of marketing today is very in your face. Like you said, you made it a great point there. It's very in your face. You see a lot of ads driven campaigns where they're always wanting you to buy, and they're tracking you so well and getting pixels into your programs or in your social media is super well, always attracting you because you checked out their page once. And I mean, we're all starting to see it a ton, right? And it's nothing new.
Yeah.
It's been a lot, but we're seeing more and more and more every single day now. In your opinion, with this landscape of very in-your-face marketing, do you think the companies that do more of a actual genuine marketing, maybe it's more experiential direction versus very in-your-face, or maybe more of a human-to-human interaction before actually asking for the sale, using their marketing as more of a tool to get to know their client before actually pitching their services or their offering? Do you think that's really going to make a change and difference in the market? Because there is such a massive demand for in your face that it's just everyone's going to get overwhelmed and want to support those people that are actually creating relationship driven campaigns, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. And so you've got the expensive, difficult, high energy, deep thought approach, or you've got just the spray and pray approach, right? and you've got a certain level of people, time, and money that you can use to design and execute this, and you're trying to make a decision where in the middle you're gonna live with it. And moving towards that strategic approach is becoming more and more important. And I think the easier it is to get my brand message in front of you, the more people doing it. It's gotten easier and cheaper just by magnitudes of change. And so therefore, if I am spam, if I'm not giving you something that's relevant to you, that you're going to find interesting and fascinating, and I'm doing that in a way that's cool, fun, and easy, if I'm not doing any of those things, then you're going to hate me. And it's going to backlash. The backlash is going to be enormous. And the fact of the matter is, the same channels that make it very easy for brands to get to you makes it real easy for you to complain back to them with just as loud of a megaphone. And so you really have to be on your game with your strategy. There's not a lot of room to just mass mail everybody one way or another. But yet you still see brands that are doing that. I mean, and with great success. Like I read recently that the average U.S. consumer sees the McDonald's brand 11 times a day, 7 days a week. Wow. And McDonald's is an iconic brand that defines America and defines fast food across the world. So, but I think they've been able to figure out how to do that on scale, that strategy on scale. And strategy, like I mentioned earlier, it's a real basic 4-step process. You got to understand, how do people engage this category? So if it's McDonald's, like what are the scenarios that somebody is going to McDonald's, and what are those usage occasions? If you're talking about like banking, are you a retail banker, or are you a business banker? Or are you going there to deposit a check, or are you simply wanting to make sure your credit card or debit card works? What's your means of engaging the category? What are those usage occasions? Who are you demographically and psychographically? Like, what makes you tick? Who are you doing this for? Are you doing it for a family, for yourself, for a child? And so you get a really good sense of who are these consumers that are operating within this world that this brand sells into or serves, right? And then, what are those habits, attitudes, values, and beliefs that define my choices over one bank versus another, or define my choices over one soda over another, or one concert venue over another? Like, what are the things that matter to me? Like, if we're talking about food, there tend to be 5 things that drive consumer decision around food, right? There's taste and price, taste and value, so those are obvious, right? But there's also utility, there's sustainability, and there's health, right? So price, taste, price, utility, sustainability, and health. And each individual with different food categories will rank order the importance of those differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're buying with a large family and a low income, you're probably going to prioritize price over health, just by realities of what you have available to you. You don't like doing that, but that's what's driving your decision. And at the end of the day, if they're not going to like the way it tastes, it doesn't matter what you buy. The kids are just going to waste it, right? So, but yet there's a category of consumer called the LOHAS consumer. It stands for Lifestyle of Health and Sustainability. And the LOHAS consumer will prioritize sustainability and health over taste. They'll buy that peanut butter that they don't like, that their family doesn't like, but because it's pure and organic and it's sourced sustainably, those values are enough, and that's 3 times the price of the other peanut butter. They're going to still buy it because it aligns with their values. So you got to understand what makes them tick, right? And most industries, food categories, and everything else, they have a very simple rank ordering of the things that define why we engage that. Like if you're talking about like beer, they talk about things like mouthfeel and those kinds of things, right? Taste.
Yeah.
So when you have that understanding of what those items are, then the third thing you do is you assess the degree to which they understand the options available to them and how those options align on these habits, values, beliefs, and attitudes, right? So when I'm buying a soda, I've got a certain number of choices I can choose from. And those sodas will run the gambit on each of those: price, taste, sustainability, utility, and health, right? And I'm looking at Coca-Cola versus looking at sparkling water, and I'm using my priorities to decide which of those I'm going to buy, right? And I have an idea of what Coca-Cola, how those line up against my values, and I have an idea of what the sparkling water brand lines up against my values, and knowing how well the way what the consumer sees as options and how those options align with their priorities, that opens up the world of why people buy what they buy, right?
Yeah.
And then your client, the brand you're promoting, the secret then becomes, how does that stack up? You know what I mean? So if I'm promoting some new carbonated juice brand, knowing how I align with those priorities that the consumers have, and then how that compares to the other options the consumer has, can tell me not only whether I've got an uphill battle or it's going to be an easy process, but more importantly, I can segment all of that by the different kinds of people and how they're engaging it to create the usage, to promote the usage occasions that I'm best positioned to align with their values on, right? So I may not be the best choice when it's your daily morning orange juice, but yet when it's the kids' party and you want something other than Capri Sun, I'm your go-to, right? Yeah. And so those kind of things, really knowing those basics, knowing that, like, how do they engage the category? What do they care about when they're doing so? How do they see the options, and what's the gap between what they care about and what your brand's all about? Knowing that allows you to implement a marketing strategy for any channel, experiential certainly no exception, that moves you away from being that junk mail catalog and turns you into the most valuable piece of mail the person received that week. And that's not easy work. That's hard work. And oftentimes it's only the more mature brands that can afford to do it. But the tools and the methods and the approaches are becoming more democratized and more accessible to all of those in the marketing space. And it is our responsibility to use them and exercise them if we want to keep up with the game.
For sure. For sure. No, that's a great explanation. I appreciate you kind of going through that. And I mean, I mentioned in your face marketing, and that's a lot of lead generation aspects for a lot of companies. It's in your face. They get you to buy right away, but they don't have full funnel conversions and full funnel effects to their marketing. They just have a very in your face, buy now or miss out kind of thing. But then you see the ad 7 more times in the same day, right? But looking for PortMA and as a lead generation aspect, sort of, if I can ask this question, if you don't mind, what seems to be your guys' go-to aspect for finding qualified agencies or partners to work with, and what seems to be working best for you guys to get the great partnerships you guys run with other marketing agencies or other clients you guys do work with? What seems to be that go-to silo that is working very well for you guys, just for other agencies out there looking for maybe another direction on how they can scale their client acquisition today or even grow their client acquisition today?
Yeah, no, good. It's a really good point. I think so. The most important thing is that you have a reputation of being an honest, fair supplier, right? And you build that reputation by being honest and fair. And there has to be a culture in the business, and I hope daily that we're fostering that here at PortMA, that says that people are coming to you with a problem, and it could be outlined in a request for proposals. It could be through an informal conversation where they're expressing to you a problem that they can't otherwise solve themselves, and you're coming to them with a solution. And no one wants to admit it, but most of the time they probably understand, if you're lucky, half of why your solution is going to work, right? Yeah. And they're buying from you, and they're making a commitment, sometimes a large commitment, to your agency, because as a supplier, because they like you and they trust you, and you've got a reputation, social proof that you know what you're talking about, right? And so once that decision is made, and once you two have decided to go forward with an engagement, as the supplier, it is your responsibility to make sure they realize that solution. And if you made a mistake on budget, or if you misunderstood something, or if you didn't lay that out correctly, that's on you as a supplier to deal with that. You can't constantly go back to your client and ask them to pay more for something they didn't really understand in the first place. And when you do that as a habit, you're going to find yourself working with one and done. Your clients are going to say, "Thank you so much, you were wonderful," and they're just never going to return your call again. Whereas if you turn that on its head, and we have some rules in PortMA that I'm proud of. One of them is that our client services team, they have to ask permission to say no to a client. And we have an enormous set of rules and operating procedures and processes for quality assurance and the like. But at the end of the day, and the people that are managing these clients are trained economists. They're highly educated, experienced market researchers and account managers. But at the end of the day, if they find themselves in a situation where they think no is the right response, we need to talk about it first. I'd much rather have you say yes and have it cost us a little chunk of money and us learn from it than to have that learning and that delay or that lack of providing a solution be the client's problem. Because if it was easy, they wouldn't have hired us in the first place to do it. So we got to take that on. And I'm very proud to say that, in our 15 and a half years, we've never only worked with a client once. They've always come back to us. And I think that's a testament to that attitude. And that's table stakes. That's the starting part. And because of that, and when you've done it for a long time, you just benefit from this big network of people. And our model of working mostly with agencies, we certainly have some great brand relationships, but mostly through agencies, we're really building these partnerships where they're bringing in 30 or 40 deals a year, and we're able to be a part of a half a dozen to a dozen of those deals because they're the right fit. And then year over year, we do that work together, and that becomes a regular source of us helping each other out, and them bringing projects to me and us bringing solutions to them, and we all win. And so that's our biggest source of clients and work. There's a lot of movement within the agency world. People tend to jump between jobs, or they get promoted or pulled away from one agency and get into a more senior position in another. And so just the legacy that we have with so many amazing marketers, when they go from being an account director to a COO in a different agency, they give us a call. And so that we expand our network of these agencies over time by doing so. And so that helps a lot too. And there are times when the well seems to be going dry, and whether it's the economy, or whether it's COVID, or whether it's all of the things that get thrown at us as business owners or people in charge of generating revenue, that you have to have techniques you can go to. Like the passive, let me wait for the phone to ring, is great when the phone's ringing, but it's terrible when it's not. And so you have to have a way to go out there. We found through Casey's leadership, our marketing team's leadership, and our sales team, we've found that LinkedIn is really a phenomenal resource. And there's a method of connecting with people that are in your micro niche, of offering them an opportunity to get some value at no cost to them. And then if that value resonates and helps them understand the way in which they can address the challenge that they're having, then making it easy for them to connect with us. And that's just having a simple conversation about, like, this is what I do. What do you do? Are there ways for us to support each other? And doing that in a no pressure, gentle, highly targeted way is a good way to build additional relationships, and that lead to additional business.
For sure.
We've started to have a lot of success with LinkedIn Live, and being able to establish an editorial calendar for ourselves. We know the industries we serve very well, and we know how the challenges that marketing directors and marketing managers are dealing with, how those challenges evolve over the year. There's a certain cycle to it. And we're reaching out monthly to our networks, inviting people to participate in a 30-minute webinar on LinkedIn about how other people have successfully solved the problems that we believe are top of mind for you right now. And as a part of that experience, we're willing to offer you some type of download, whether it be a spreadsheet that completes a certain analysis, or whether it be a checklist that defines how a process can work better. Usually things that we have otherwise behind a paywall, we offer for free to those that are participating in exchange for an email address. And then once that email is in our hands, that allows us to have that initial conversation around what you're working on, and is there any way that we can add some value to that? And if not, do you mind if I reach out every couple of weeks with an update of how the business is going? They go into our lead nurturing process. And that becomes a good way to build a network and to build a base. And when that gets into the thousands, the phone starts ringing again more often. That's one other thing I was going to mention. I forgot what it was. But the last thing I would say in that area is that we've put a lot of attention recently to our customer life cycle, and looking at like 4 stages for those that engage us. And we have people that are in the adoption stage, they go into an expansion stage, and then we get into referrals. And really, where are they? What are the ways in which they need us to relate to them? Are we very education focused? Are we very process focused? What's going to make the most sense for them in this process of learning to work with us? And how are we meeting them where they are based on the evolution of a relationship? And what we've found is that we were having great relationships with folks that would we had one relationship that we measured the same program for 14 years in a row, and had an amazing run together. And that agency lost that business, and we therefore lost the business. And we didn't have a good strategy of how to add value to them that wasn't in the 6-digit arena. And they didn't have projects that could support a 6-digit supplier, and so we kind of fell out together. We were always friends, and we'd laugh and see each other when we could, but we weren't doing business together anymore. And so we really focused on the products and services we deliver that can support folks from a wide range of needs with a wide range of entry points, and so that we can stay connected. The last thing I said the last thing a couple of times, I keep coming up with different things I want to share, but one more thing I'll share before I stop is, whenever I'm talking to somebody, whenever we're discussing or getting to know someone, and it just isn't the right time right now because of budgets or time or the need isn't appropriate, we always part by letting them know that we're always happy to do anything we can to help, so long as it takes less than 30 minutes, it's free. And the person, usually by the point that we're saying that, has a pretty good understanding of where we live and what we do really well. And 30 minutes in order to solve a problem and increase that trust and to have an opportunity to talk and be at the table next time is no skin off anyone's back on my side. And so doing so and approaching the idea of business development and building relationships from scratch with that as an approach, people that I never would have expected would be a large client 2 years down the road would reach back out and have questions about things, and we just develop a friendship. And then when they do have the time and the resources and the need, um, they connect with us, and they don't owe us anything, but there's a sense of let me give the PortMA team the right of first refusal on this idea because they've been so good to me over the years. And and it just is like anything. You just be a good person, do good work, be honest, help everybody out, and the revenue follows. It certainly follows. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I love how everything you guys do is so value driven and is so driven towards adding information, adding value, adding knowledge if possible, and helping them succeed and see the truth before they come and work with you guys, to show that you guys are committed to their success, to them learning, to them growing, and growing with them as well. Even if it's not today, even in the next few years, we're always available to have a conversation and chat, right? So it's leading with value is huge, and we're starting to see more and more of that now and trading off emails for information. And it's super important because a lot of people want to learn, a lot of people want to grow, and if they can make great connections while doing that, even if they're not going to work with you today, that's important as well. It's just making those relationships. Looking ahead for PortMA, Chris, what is the vision? What's the goals you have for PortMA within the coming future?
We have so many things that we're excited to work on, and we've recently, last couple of years, we adopted a 12-week planning cycle because we were spending too much time building huge objectives that would take years to accomplish, and it was too abstract, and so we grounded things into specific goals, and so we obviously want to see year-over-year revenue growth and the like, but also we've diversified the offerings that we have into kind of historically we'd always been like, hey, we'll do it for you. Let's sit down, let's talk about the problem. You're not a statistician, we are statisticians. Let's take that off your hands and let's work together for 3 to 6, 12 months on this project, and then we'll come back together when the next one comes around. And that's great. That's a great business model, and it's been our bread and butter from day one. But that's expensive too, and it's time consuming, and it's a big commitment on everybody's part, and that's not always appropriate for certain campaigns and certain programs. And so we've adopted and really done a great job building out an option that says, let's do it together. Let's license all the answers that we have to you and your in-house analytic teams, and let's be an unlimited resource to them, so long as they are using that resource as a scheduled 30-minute phone call. But if you want to do them twice a day, every day, that's perfectly okay. But let us be consultants to you. If you need us to actually deliver something, then we'll go on the clock. But otherwise, let's establish an annual partnership with a single pay license agreement that gives you everything you need in-house. Let's support that with an enormous benchmarking database, with all the resources and templates and tools and spreadsheets you would need to do everything we do. The same tools that we use in that we do it for you approach, we're going to make available to you and teach you how to use them in a we'll do it together kind of approach. And that drops the entry level price tag enormously, and it really empowers the agency that has aspirations to build these skills in house. And then we've taken all that data, because we've just got hundreds of thousands of consumer interviews, and we've worked on literally hundreds of thousands of events. We got all that data well organized. So we've started putting together syndicated reports that's talking about, what are the trends in the whiskey industry, or what's going on when it comes to consumer packaged goods, and how is that different than when you compare finance and insurance, and being able to write syndicated and publish syndicated reports that provide that licensing also, but in kind of a you do it yourself kind of model. And so it brings that entry point cost even lower, down below $1,000, to give somebody the tools to start to answer those questions. And then anytime you come in to us as an entry level syndicated report buyer, what you've spent can be applied as credit to a more in-depth engagement, so that you're never making the wrong choice by coming together. And so that's been a really wildly successful approach for us, and it's allowed us to broaden the people that we can provide assistance to, and it also has increased our ability to get out there through third-party publishers and everything else that we can do now. And so continuing to build on the services that those licensings provide, and we have some SaaS-based solutions that support that licensing, and making sure that we're continuously adding to the features of that. And as clients come to us with problems that we don't have a solution for in a do-it-yourself kind of way, let's solve it in the short term with our own time, but let's also build the solution that's going to allow them to do it for themselves next time. And we've got a really brilliant development team, and we've got a great marketing team supporting that. We've got excellent product management in-house, and all of that is continuing to build this kind of solution for agencies and brands in this kind of sponsorship experiential space. And I'm excited to continue to focus on and promote that. And we launched, came out of beta about a year and a half ago with some of these tools, and they've been very well received and adopted. And
it's amazing.
We've seen a lot of renewal and loyalty among our client base for those things. And so we're excited to continue to serve them and keep getting better at it.
That's awesome. No, that's amazing. And back to adding value, right? Just to like what you said earlier, adding value, adding information when being able to, and helping other companies grow. And that's what you guys are in the business of doing, is helping companies grow. And now you're just giving them more resources to help them get to where they want to be, and really helping the foundation of these companies. I think that's really
read
amazing.
Recently in a book that said every marketing touch point has to be the equivalent value of a $100 bill. And so when we're reaching out to somebody, whether it's automated or not, and how, like, is this worth $100 to the person?
Yeah.
And if not, how can we juice it up some more and make it really, really worth their 2 seconds of attention? And man, when you do that authentically with the right intention, it comes together.
Well, I mean, if you look at some of the messages that come through on your LinkedIn page, it's like, hey, I just want to connect for 15 minutes of your time, see if we can make a connection, or see if we can work together. It's like a lot of people value their time at thousands of dollars an hour.
Yeah.
You're asking for, so say half an hour of someone's time. So let's just say you value yourself at $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
You want to charge $500, and you're sending that message to charge $500. I think you can rewrite your messaging to resonate a little bit more, to be worth that $500, just like you said, to expand off it. So, that's awesome. That's amazing. I like that. I'm going to use that now.
Good. It wasn't mine. I don't remember where I read it, but it's yeah.
No, I'm going to use that now. That's awesome. That's actually a great saying there. So, I mean, Chris, for young entrepreneurs just getting started today, with all of your experience, what is the best piece of advice you can give them to take their first steps in an industry like the marketing industry as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. You know, if I was to do everything over again on my side, I would take this advice first and foremost and take it more seriously than anything else. And that is to, like, think very carefully about what is it that you do that you're passionate about, that, be it ever so specific and ever so like niched, that's better than anybody else. It doesn't matter what that is, but figure that out for yourself and do just that, and focus your marketing on just that. Don't be a generalist. Don't be somebody who does everything for everybody. Be somebody that does one thing magically that no one else can do like you can do it. And the worry is you don't want to be too small. You don't want to be like limit yourself, but you do want to limit yourself. You want to be an enormous fish in a tiny little puddle. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You want to be the go-to when someone has this crazy little niche problem. And the more you can do that, the more you can identify what that is for you, and the more you can focus 100% of your outward communication about your company targeted just on that thing, the easier it's going to be for you. Because you're never going to compete with Yahoo or Nielsen or CNBC or Coca-Cola or McDonald's. You know what I mean? You're just not going to get there. But there is an area that makes you incredibly special, and you have a very unique thing to offer that's worth money, that people are struggling with. And when you can identify with that, you're gonna knock it out of the park.
Amazing, Chris. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Much appreciated. We've dug through a ton of your knowledge and your experience, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it with the audience and share everything that you've been through on your journey and help a lot of people build a knowledge base. This has been super educational. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would just say, Korson, if people are interested in the stuff we talked about, you can visit us at PortMA.com, or you can look up PortMA, PortMA, on any of our socials, and we'd be happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Where can people find you, just in case they want to find, if they can find your socials, if you don't mind?
We're all over LinkedIn. So whether it's myself, Christopher H. Clegg on LinkedIn, or whether it's Portland Marketing Analytics or PortMA on LinkedIn, you'll find us there. And a ton of videos and content and everything else. We're extremely active online, where we have our enormous presence in our organic search. And so if you were to search like the value of an event marketing impression, or if you were to search experiential marketing ROI, or you'll find a dozen articles about us, and hopefully it gives you something that's not a waste of your time. Certainly what our objective has been. Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks. Take care, Korson.